Hi all. So this video will explain what is the difference between a normal function and a constructor function in JavaScript, and what will happen when we call a constructor function with a new keyword, as well as we will try to polyfill the new keyword also. So let me start with the difference between a normal function and a constructor function first. So let's say I'm writing a function to sum two numbers. So function sum x comma y. So this is a normal function. We used to create normal functions to do some calculations, return something. So how can we call this function? Just call sum. Okay, let me write it. Sum 1 comma 2. So this will return sum. Console. Sorry, console log s. So what will happen? This will return the sum. Let's check in the console. So we will get sum 3. So what is a constructor function, and what we used to use it for? So constructor functions are like, let me write a constructor function first. So function, I'm creating a constructor function for to create objects of person. So this is a constructor function. We usually write the constructor functions first letter as caps. And how we create objects of this constructor function? We can create it using the new keyword. So this is one example. Let's say P1, and we create an object using new keyword, a new person, John 30. So this will return an object with inside that we can see when we pass John, this will assign to the this dot name, and age will assign to the this dot age, and return that this. So basically, when we call a constructor function with a new keyword, what will happen? It will return the this from this constructor function. So here we will get a function with the two properties, name and age. We can see this in the console. So if we mouse over here, we see age and name is in one object. We can create another objects also. Let's say x 20 p2. Okay, so if we run it, you can see this p1 is one object with the name John, and p2 is another object with the name Alex. Yeah. Now, what is basically happening when we call a constructor function with a new keyword is an empty object is created. Then that empty object is this is assigned to that empty object, and as well as here the prototype of this person also will assign to the empty object. So let's say in order to understand that, let's say I'm attaching a function to the person prototype. How we can do that? So person dot prototype dot let's say my name, say hi, say hi. Okay, function. Okay, so return, this will return. Okay, so this is returning I am name, and I am 20 years of old. So the reason, hope you know the reason why I attach this function to the prototype, because if I attach this function to this, I can write this function here also. This dot say hi this way. The difference is this will allocate memory for this function for every object. P1 it will allocate memory for say hi function. P2 again it will allocate memory for say hi function. So instead of that, if I attach that to the prototype, we can save the memory. So in JavaScript, these functions are we usually write this way. So again, let me recall what will happen when we create a object with a new keyword. So basically it will create a object, and that object's prototype will point to the constructor function's prototype. So dot prototype. Why? Because then only we will get these functions into that returned object. Then it will return that, and then it will assign the these properties to the newly created object and return that object. We will learn more about this when we try to mimic the polyfill of um, new. Now, before going to that, let me tell you a few more things. So we can see this function is returning, explicitly returning nothing. What if this function returns something like return hello? So what will happen? Should it return hello or should it return the this object? So here, if a constructor function return a primitive data, that is string or boolean or numbers, it won't return that primitive data. Instead it will avoid that, and it will return the this. So we can check that here. So we can see, even though it's return hello, we are getting this object with the name John and age 30. So this will happen for all the primitive objects. But what if I return a object from here? Let's say I'm returning an object. Let's say any property, address, and 123 Main Street. Okay. So what will happen? So this time, this object that I explicitly returned will return from that constructor function when we create an object using new keyword. So we can see here. Let me see. We can see it's a returned address. Okay, instead of returning this. Again, one more scenario. What if I return a function from here? So I'm returning a function. Okay. So you can see I'm returning a function, just consoling my name is uh, and age is. So this case, this will return the function itself. Then we can call that function. Let me call it p1. Okay. So why I did this? This will in p1 we will get this function, and in order to execute it, I need to call it. That's why I did p1. So let me do it, execute it. So if I go console, we can see John is 30 years old. So we covered a couple of scenarios. One is nothing returned, and another scenario, what if we return a primitive type, and what if we return an object, as well as what if we return a function from a constructor function. Yeah. Now let's go back to the browser. Yeah, so next we will check, we will try to mimic the this polyfill of new keyword. Okay, we will try to mimic this polyfill of new keyword. Okay, so what we can't create a another one second. Yeah, we can't create another keyword like new, because instead of that, what we'll do, let's say let p2 equal to my new, and we'll pass we will pass this okay, let's say it's a function. Okay, so we will my new, then this way, then pass the first parameter as the constructor function itself, then the parameters to that constructor function. Okay, so this way we will try to mimic the behavior of new keyword. So we'll create a function my new. Inside that we will pass the constructor function along with the uh, parameters to that constructor function. Okay, before jumping into that, let's see what we are getting when we call a constructor function with the new keyword. So So you can see here. Let me delete the other things. Okay. So you can see we have created a constructor function person with the name and age, and I attached a function say hi to the prototype of that constructor function. Now when we create a object of this constructor function, let's see what we are getting. We put a debugger here. So if we edge over the mouse here, we can see a object with the name, John, and age 30. When we expand the prototype, we can see that function we attached to this prototype. Okay. So we are going to mimic the same behavior. Okay. So first, as I mentioned, this is what we're going to do. Let p2 equal to sorry, not this way. My new. The first parameter will be the first parameter will be the constructor function, then the parameters. Okay, so let me write the function my new. Okay, then okay, so I written the function my new. So the first one is constructor function, then we are getting the arguments here. Okay, so John and let's say Alex and age 25 we will get here. If we write the if we console these arguments console, yeah, we will get it as a function. Okay, let's see that. What is the error here? Console. Okay, console.log. Okay, you can see we will get the arguments as a array. Now I mentioned in the earlier like what is happening when we call a constructor function with a new keyword. So basically it will create an object and create an empty object, then its prototype, sorry, its prototype is pointing to the, one second, let me turn off the chat gpt first, it's making kind of, so, okay, still doing it. Okay. So it will create an empty object, then the prototype of that empty object, let's say prototype, will point to the prototype of constructor function. So constructor function dot prototype, and then the values should be assigned to this newly created object and return that newly created object. Okay, so first what we will do, we will create, instead of creating an object and then later assign the uh, send the prototype of a prototype of constructor function to its prototype, we can create it in one step using object dot create. So let's see, object dot create. Okay, so we can see object dot create I used to create the empty object, and that empty object's prototype is pointing to the constructor function's prototype. Okay, and we need to return it, return object. Okay, let me close this and reopen. Yeah, so what I did, I created the empty object, and its prototype is pointing to the prototype of constructor function and returning that object. Okay, now I need to, when we call this Alex and 25 age, I need to assign these values to this created object. So for that, what I have to do now, I have to call this function, constructor function, I have to pass the this. So I have to call this using apply. Okay, we can do it using a call or apply. I'm doing it using apply. Now the first parameter is this. This to the this. So here object I am passing, then arguments. Okay. Now we can if it is not an arguments are not an array. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So if I call this function using code, then I have to pass the arguments like one after another, not as an array. So what will happen when I call this constructor function with apply? This will be passed as object. So here this is object, and then once we call this, we can see assigning the values passed as arguments, assigning to the this variable. Okay, so to this objective variable, these values will get assigned. Okay, now at this stage, if we let's debug. Okay, let's put a debugger here. We will see a object is created, its prototype is pointed to the constructor functions prototype, and the values are assigned to that object. Okay, let's see. So we can see what is the value of object. Okay, now age name is assigned, and let's see the let's say the prototype, it's the prototype of the past constructor function. So and I'm finally I'm returning that object also. So this way we can polyfill this new keyword in JavaScript.